Minister, it's not like we want to personalise things in any way or comment on your particular background or anybody else's. But there is absolutely no doubt that the policies that have been pursued. I first entered the Dáil in 2011. Same year Fine Gael and Labour came into government, and I'm in it 10 years now. And that government, by the way, Enda Kenny, in its programme for government, promised to end homelessness within the period of the term of that government. And what followed was not the ending of homelessness, but the spiralling of homelessness and the housing crisis out of all control. And 10 years on, the situation is as bad or worse than ever. In fact, it's worse, very considerably worse. And right from the beginning, and this is the frustration I have to say I feel on a personal level, from day one when I came into Dáil Éireann, I could see the writing on the wall for the housing crisis that was going to come because of policy decisions that were made in those first couple of years. Policy number one was the decision in June 11, and I remember the circular so well, and I highlighted it in the Dáil, and nobody took a blind bit of notice at the time. And I pointed out most of the journalists didn't even know what a RAS scheme was. They hadn't come up with the term HAP. But essentially, there was a document that said, we're not going to build council houses anymore, we're going to do these RAS schemes. And I tried to point out to the journalists, who at that point didn't even know what a RAS scheme was, this was going to be a disaster. And it was a conscious policy because it was linked to the Michael Noonan policy of inviting in the vulture funds to refloat the property market, and the deal with them, undoubtedly, was now you will be getting the RAS money, and then later it became HAP, from the local authorities because we're not going to be building the council houses anymore. Okay? It was a plan. Now, in whose interest did that plan operate? Well, it self-evidently didn't operate in the interest of the 100,000 families who were still on the housing list, or on HAP tenancies where they're completely insecure. It didn't operate in the interest of the working people out there trying to buy an affordable home, or the renters who are now paying €2,000 a month or €2,500 a month. Whose interest did it operate in? Who benefited? You know, it's a famous adage, isn't it? Who benefits? Well, it's obvious. The people who own property benefited. The developers, the vulture funds, the cuckoos benefited enormously. And it was all set up for them. So what was driving them? Was it ideology, belief in the market, or was it the fact that there's a disproportionate number of landlords in the Dáil? A combination of all of these things. But I can tell you it was a disaster. An absolute disaster. And I heard you use the term, what was it, fantasy economics earlier on? When we said at that time, and it was in every budget document we produced back there from about 2012, we needed to build about 20,000 public and affordable homes. Fantasy economics we were accused in, year out. What a load of nonsense. I remember I got up at one of the first leaders' questions I ever did in 2012, and I warned that we were heading back towards the tenement conditions that Sean O'Casey described in his plays at the turn of the century. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil were rolling in the aisles with laughter. Hoots of derision for even suggesting such a thing. Absolute contempt. But what was driving me was the housing misery of the people who were coming into my office. That's what was driving me, and it's still driving. And they were out there with me today. The tenants of St. Helens Court, 4 years on, 2 vulture funds on, and decent working people are being told by the council, we have nothing for you, you're going into a homeless hostel. Right? And I've been citing this example for 4 years. In an apartment complex where there are now 13 empty apartments, perfectly refurbished, sitting empty, and where the representative of that vulture fund went into the PRTB to secure the eviction, and the barrister representing them said, this is not very pleasant, but our client has to maximise the value of the property. And yous allow that. And that is the point of this bill. To say, sorry, that ruthless greed for profit is not more important than the right of those people not to be put out on the street next week. Okay, now this bill won't sort it all out, but it will dramatically shift the legal balance in favour of the right to secure and affordable housing, and it will clear away the excuses you have used consistently to say we can't have rent controls, we can't stop those unjust evictions, we can't take action against all the empty property that's being sat on that Deputy, sorry, I've forgotten his name again. Anyway, one of the other deputies spoke about all the empty property that's been sat on by these property owners when it could be used to house people. We could take aggressive action. Every time we say, I'll just finish on this, Count Corley, every time we say we need rent controls, we need to stop unfair evictions, we need to take action against the speculators, we're told the Constitution is a blockage. So we're proposing to remove that blockage, but in addition, you need to accept that the policy approach you've taken has been a disaster, and that maybe the left were right, okay? And that maybe we need to start to invest in public and affordable housing on our own land and push the vultures, the cuckoos, and the people who see housing as an opportunity to make profit out of the picture.